How do you develop trust and confidence in the workplace? If ever there was a time when we need more trust, more confidence, when survey after survey is telling us that the workplace is a place of anxiety, a place of frustration, it's now. And there are practical things that we can do as leaders and managers that will embody and infuse within our organizations some trust and confidence. Stay with me in this video and we're going to explore 8 different techniques of increasing trust and confidence. So why is it that we are experiencing a lack of trust and confidence in the workplace? You know, I think it's a sign of the times. I think it's the age that we're in. We live in a world where the pace has really changed, where things are becoming quicker and quicker and quicker, where we are living at a speed that is astronomical from what we had only a few years ago. Secondly, I think it's also change. And the reality that everything is constantly changing, that there is nothing remaining static. And of course, one of the problems is when you have that pace and you have constant change, it is very difficult to establish trust. And as proof of this, if you turn to an experiment that Google did only a few years ago, it wanted to analyze why were some teams functioning at a higher level than others. It looked at all these different variables. Was it age? Was it sex? What was it? And they came to one variable that was incredibly important, and that was psychological trust. It was this ability in the workplace to say, hey, you know what? I screwed up. I made a mistake. It was the ability to be vulnerable. It was the ability to say, I need help. It was the ability to challenge when challenge needed to be made. And so therefore, it's incredibly important that we build workplaces that are full of trust and confidence if our leadership is going to be impactful. Today, I want to share with you 8 ways that will help you build that trust and that confidence. The first is be very clear on your culture of mistakes. What do I mean about culture of mistakes? You know, every organization has a culture around what happens when there are mistakes. Some organizations, it's dive and don't own up to it. In other organizations, mistakes are looked at as opportunities for growth and something to be curious about and learning activities. We know that when organizations provide support, especially when at times we make mistakes, also creates an environment of trust. Trust that we can try our best. Trust that at times we do make mistakes. Trust that even though we make mistakes, there is learning to be had, and with enough mistakes comes the next great invention. The second point is, what does your feedback system look like? You know, very often our feedback system is always pointing out what we did wrong. And that simple change in that can create some form of trust and confidence. One of the techniques I like is next time. So in other words, when you're asking a person, instead of asking them, what did you do wrong? You can look forward and say, next time, what would you do differently? You're getting to the same point. You're getting to the changes that they want to make, but you're doing it in such a way that the person becomes less defensive and looks forward to the next time. First of all, there's going to be a next time. They're not going to be punished for making the mistake. And secondly, they're asked to be involved in the changes that they have to make the next iteration in what they're doing more successful. The third thing is, when there are issues, they should be dealt with in a timely fashion. One of the things that causes distrust in organization is things that should have been dealt with, problems that occurred, not being dealt with in a timely manner, but are brought up months later. How many times have I seen in annual reviews something brought up that happened 6 months ago that never was addressed? This is disastrous when it comes to creating a culture of trust. If there are problems, if there are issues, bring them up in a timely fashion. Perhaps not immediately if it's evoked or triggered anger and that conversation could escalate, but certainly in a timely fashion that a person is aware of a problem and can do something about it and not blindsided 6 months later. Number 5 is give credit where credit is due. There is no greater action that can demoralize a team than a leader who takes credit for something someone else did or the team did. A confident leader, a person who knows their own worth, is able to shine light in others, because this gives them the confidence to know and the trust that their work is being appreciated, that their work is being recognized, that they are being valued as part of the team. The fourth point as a leader is that we need to be consistent, that we want to treat everyone equally, and that we want at times our mood to be consistent as well. You know, trust is built when there is consistency in the way that we deal with others. When there's inconsistency, when there's perceived favorites, it can wreak havoc in an organization when it comes to trusting the leader and trusting the process. The sixth point is be a listener. Be a great listener. Be the best listener. If you want to build trust and confidence, then people must feel that they're appreciated and listened to. You know, so often we're distracted, so often we're trying to multitask, we're trying to do all these different things, and yet the most profound thing we can do as a leader is to truly listen to another person. Because that's the way we're going to receive all this information that at other times gets lost. When a person feels valued, when a person feels listened to, they begin to trust. It's not that you have to agree with the person all the time, but what must happen is that everyone has to be listened to and their opinions held with value. The seventh is try and lead through questions. You know, there's a number of different books out there talking about leading with questions, and it's this mindset change. Rather than feeling that the leader is the one that has to have all the answers, the leader is the one that is able to ask some amazing questions that gets those around them to begin to think about what's happening and to give input. This is a great way of signaling to people that your opinion matters. It's a great way of building trust, knowing that everyone has an important part of every decision. So instead, perhaps, of rushing to a decision, rather ask some really powerful questions. It's quite amazing what can come up from those questions. And finally, there's body language. You know, our body language expresses a message to other people. Does our body language say, trust me? Does our body language say that I'm open? Because we know that openness happens through our bodies as well. Whenever we're talking with someone, non-verbally are we signaling to them, I respect you, I'm listening to you, I am open? Or is my body language showing that I'm distracted, that my mind is somewhere else, that I'm closed off to your opinion? So listen as well with your body. Show trust and confidence with your body language as well. That helps maintain non-verbally an atmosphere of trust and confidence. If you can instill in your workplace trust and confidence, we know from research that that's going to impact the performance and it's going to lead to outstanding teams. Hopefully today you've learned some tips on how to increase trust and confidence. And if you want to explore this more, especially on teams, then you need to watch this next video, which talks about why emotional intelligence is so important in teamwork.